A shift in how immigration laws are enforced in Minnesota. We have brand new polling on immigration, on the role of ICE, but also on the blue state exodus. We're going to talk about some major developments in transgender surgery lawsuits, and Billie Eilish and her first foray into politics is not going well. All of that and so much more today on 10 Minute Drill.
Everybody get up, get up.
The story of America is the story of an adventure.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
We are a nation under God, and I believe God intended for us to be free.
As we kick off this morning, the federal government is officially funded, but these next 2 weeks will be a heated debate over ICE and what Congress wants to try and change about how they do things. Savannah Guthrie, the journalist, mother is missing. There's a lot of news coverage about what's going on there. We also have been tracking a situation in which an Iranian drone was shot down by American personnel off the coast of Iran. However, at this moment, peace talks are back on track. But we begin back in Minnesota, where the Trump administration has announced they're pulling out 700 ICE agents from the state after a number of sanctuary cities within Minnesota have finally agreed to cooperate with ICE and Tom Homan. Now, everyone is going to try and claim victory in this situation, but for the Trump administration, the only reason they had the scale of ICE deployment that they had was because of the sanctuary policies that forced them to carry out these at-large arrests instead of working with particularly law enforcement officers to get already arrested criminal illegal immigrants. So the Trump administration feels pretty good about doing this. At the same time, we have a lot of new polling that highlights where the American people actually stand on this debate, even as media and social media have been on fire about it. First, a Harvard-Harris poll. 67% want local officials to turn criminals over to ICE. And then a Signal poll. 73% of midterm voters believe entering the country illegally is breaking the law, including 82% of swing voters. 64% of midterm voters say illegal immigration is a problem, including 71% of swing voters. 61% of midterm voters support deporting those in our country illegally to the country of origin, including 64% of swing voters, 59% of independents. Now, that one is a notable one because there's been a lot of conversation about people saying we only want ICE to deport people with criminal records. However, if you've come into the country illegally, you've already broken the law. And so we still see 59% of independents want everyone in this country illegally to be deported back to their country of origin. 54% support ICE enforcing federal immigration laws to remove illegal immigrants. 58% oppose shutting down the government to defund ICE. Now, that ship has already sailed, but it was a very short shutdown, so we'll see what the political fallout of that is. However, there is another chance that we have a shutdown in 2 weeks if Republicans and Democrats can't come to a deal on what new rules and restrictions they want to put on ICE agents in order to continue funding the Department of Homeland Security and, of course, TSA and FEMA. It's been a few days of major headlines in the debate over transgender surgeries for minors. Detransitioner touts $2 million landmark malpractice ruling as good start, but not nearly enough. Fox Varian sued her medical providers for pushing to have a double mastectomy when she was 16 years old. The jury awarded her $1.6 million for past and future suffering, as well as an additional $400,000 for future medical expenses. Over the last few years, there's been a major shift in polling where people overwhelmingly believe that people under the age of 18 should not be allowed to get permanent sex change surgeries. Chloe Cole is one of the major voices of the detransition movement. She's been a voice on this. And now a few major medical organizations are also weighing in here. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons released new guidance on Tuesday, cautioning physicians against performing gender transition surgeries on minors. One of the issues that the American Society of Plastic Surgeons raised is the fact that people under the age of 18 might not have enough information to make permanent decisions about things like sex change surgeries. But it did not end with them. Much more notably afterwards, the American Medical Association weighed in. The evidence for gender-affirming surgical intervention in minors is insufficient for us to make a definitive statement. The AMA agrees with the ASPS that surgical interventions in minors should be generally deferred to adulthood. This is particularly notable because over the last several years, this issue has shifted. There was a time where you could be canceled for questioning the science around allowing minors to have permanent sex change surgeries. Now we have major medical organizations saying things that to us all along felt like common sense. And so there will be a lot more conversation about just how much damage was done in a period of time where science was shifted to fit a political narrative. And this is one of several issue areas where science has been sort of thrown out the door to fit a political agenda. The other ones that I would cite are throwing out all medical information and science around COVID to justify things like 6 feet to slow the spread that led to school closures, which we found out later was completely made up. But at the time, we were told we have to trust the science. Another issue area where science has been thrown out is climate change, where you have the left arguing with backing of politically aligned scientists that things like putting gas in your car is causing major weather events, even though they've thrown out all the peer-reviewed studies and research to try and create that connection. There is no actual attribution established there, but they've been willing to throw that out and pretend that they've got science on their side because the political agenda demands it. So there will continue to be a lot of discussion about this topic. Our favorite Harry Enton has a very interesting nugget this week about migration coming out of blue states and what it might mean.
We got a red state boom going on, a blue state depression going on, people moving from the blue states to the red states. And if it holds for 2030, well, it would make the Democratic nominee for president's job of winning the Electoral College that much more difficult.
Now, it's important to note, people aren't leaving California in droves, making it the number one state people are departing because there's too much sunshine, good weather, incredible sports teams, and fun activities and beaches. They're leaving because the policies are terrible, and they're leading to bad outcomes that have made the state largely unlivable for most Americans. I cite from Russ Green, if California keeps going, it can achieve the trifecta: highest gasoline prices, most expensive electricity, and highest poverty. What a milestone. And it's important to note that all of that was intentional. Those highest gas prices didn't just happen because there's not enough gas in California. It happened because elected officials in California, like Gavin Newsom, have chased out oil refineries and made it impossible to supply gas in the state because they wanted to force everyone into electric vehicles. Homelessness is as bad as it is because even though they spent $23 billion in the last 5 years to fight homelessness has gotten worse, but nonprofits aligned with Gavin Newsom have gotten a lot more money. But another boondoggle just to highlight Gavin Newsom's leadership. He held an event yesterday to highlight progress in high-speed rail. Now, if you look at that placard, it says, laying the tracks, building the future. You might think that they're starting to lay tracks for the high-speed rail system that is already decades behind schedule. I will note again, as I have before in this program, the first conversations in the California legislature about high-speed rail happened 10 years before I was born. This was supposed to be completed years ago, and they're still not close, even though they're looking at being $100 billion over budget. But the celebration where he has these signs saying laying tracks is not about laying tracks. It's about opening a facility that eventually down the road will get parts to begin making tracks and then laying them. So they're not even there yet. And even when they are there, this is not going to connect LA and San Francisco. This is going to connect Glendale, 1 hour north of Los Angeles, and Gilroy, 2 hours south of San Francisco. Who's going to use that wouldn't just otherwise get on a plane or drive the entire way? They've made it completely unusable, which again is the essence of Gavin Newsom's leadership, raising your taxes to pay for boondoggles that don't actually benefit you or anyone you know. For the last 2 days, President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have been holding negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Abu Dhabi. The Wall Street Journal wrote this: Vladimir Putin isn't winning in Ukraine. Russian forces have taken an astonishing 1.2 million casualties in Ukraine since 2022. The conventional wisdom is that Mr. Putin will eventually prevail because Russia is the larger power and Mr. Putin can keep throwing men into his human meat grinder. Yet, Mr. Putin isn't making territorial gains commensurate with his losses. Mr. Putin isn't the unstoppable man he wants Mr. Trump to think he is. The question of the past year has been whether President Trump will see this strategic opening to reduce Russian threat to the U.S. and deter the world's bad actors in Beijing and elsewhere by driving a harder bargain in Ukraine. So as the Wall Street Journal is noting, and as a number of Republicans in the House and Senate have noted, Russia is on their back feet here, and this is a good opportunity for President Trump and his envoy to demand those concessions that are going to be necessary to end this war. We haven't done one of these in a long time, and we wanted to do a little bit of fan mail, both with YouTube comments, but also some of our really great Apple Podcast reviews that we're so grateful for. And please, again, continue to leave us reviews, leave us feedback, leave us ratings on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. But first, on YouTube, from 123 Bondar 123, enjoy 10-Minute Drill. Gives me all the unbiased current news in America. Over on Apple Podcasts from Easy Sailor 2070, what a great program, providing us honest and non-biased news. From Silent Majority Linda, I love the clear, concise look at what's happening in the country. We appreciate you, Silent Majority Linda. Informative from Mama Lisa. This is my favorite political podcast. Very informative, and the best part is it's short. From Drill Fan, great way to start the day. I don't have time to listen to an hour of news on the morning, so I listen to 10-Minute Drill. Matt does an excellent job of covering all the important topics in an easy and effective way. I love his humor too. Thank you so much for this feedback and for these comments. We appreciate it and we'll continue to do our best to keep it short and give you the best unbiased news of the day. You may have heard over the weekend at the Grammys, Billie Eilish made quite a bit of news. Before we get to that, I want to highlight something from my past life doing social media for Senator Orrin Hatch. Now, this was not the Orrin Hatch account. This was a parody account, but we tweeted this. A picture of Senator Hatch in a velour tracksuit holding a phone saying, trying to get a young person on the telephone to tell me what Billie Eyelash is. Now here's Billie at the Grammys over the weekend.
No one is illegal on stolen land.
Now, just a bit of context there. The stolen lands conversation is the farthest part of the woke spectrum. You've got your love everyone, trans lives matter. Stolen land and land acknowledgements is the wackiest part of the woke spectrum. So naturally, she got a giant standing applause for this messaging. But the funniest part of this is the tribe whose land Billie Eyelash currently lives on had something to say about it. From John Roberts at Fox, the Tongva tribe reacts to Billie Eilish remarks about stolen land. As the first people of the greater Los Angeles basin, we do understand that her home is situated in our ancestral land. Eyelash has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property. I can't wait to follow this one, because if you say something in front of the Grammys audience, it is binding. And so this is very, very important to see where this one goes. But as with many, many virtue signaling incidents, there are unintended consequences. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on 10-Minute Drill. Please leave us a review, leave us a rating, like, subscribe, and tell your friends. Have a great day.